All right, guys, good evening. We are going to take some notes on the Protestant Reformation. So, the Protestant Reformation is centered around the life of a gentleman by the name of Martin Luther. His image is there. Born in 1483, dies in 1546. He's a German monk and theology professor. Now, theology, the study of religion. And the biggest thing, this is kind of an overview slide, is that he initially is going to reject the practices of the Catholic Church. The main one is the doctrine of indulgences, right? It's very similar to the treasury of merit, where people can pay to get into heaven or pay to have remission of sin. He's also against the Pope selling these church positions. The Pope has kind of cleaned up his act at this point, but still lots of corruption, especially with the doctrine of indulgences and that payment for sin. So Martin Luther is going to reject that, even though he is a devout Catholic priest. So what he does is he writes a list of everything that he sees wrong with the Catholic Church, and he calls it his 95 Thesis. He publishes it or puts it, there's a modern day picture here on the right, nails it up to the church in Wittenberg in Germany for all to see in October of 1517. Actually, we just celebrated the 500th anniversary of that about 2 years ago. So he doesn't want to start a new religion. He's not, I want to start Protestantism. Right? Eventually it grows into that. That's an important concept to understand. He doesn't want to break away. He just wants to make it known what he sees wrong with the Catholic Church. So with the spread of ideas, with the printing press, with everything that's going on in the Renaissance, again, this is happening after the Renaissance, a lot of copies of his 95 Thesis spread all over Europe, and people are able to read them, and they kind of start to agree. They say, wait a second, this guy kind of has some good points. In 1518, about a year after he writes it, 10 months or so, the Pope at the time, Pope Leo X, demands that Martin Luther renounce his writings. But Martin Luther sticks true and says, no, I am not going to do that. He refuses. But then Pope Leo excommunicates Luther from the Catholic Church. And what does that mean? Well, he kicks him out. So then, 2 years later, he's excommunicated. He still does some writing. He starts to kind of develop this, again, starting to slowly turn into a new religion. Not yet, really. The Diet of Worms happens. And Worms is a city in Germany. And it is a meeting place of princes and royal bishops and wealthy individuals, and the Holy Roman Empire really wants to get Luther back into the church. The emperor as well actually is here in this image. This is Luther kind of explaining, his 95 Thesis, again, a modern day depiction. But Luther is not going to take back his criticism. They want him to, but he's saying, no, I am not going to do that. This is what's wrong with the Catholic Church. So after Worms, after the Diet of Worms happens, Luther is still going to refuse what he wrote about the Catholic Church. So lots of people really are almost calling for the death of Martin Luther, once a devout Catholic man. And he hides out in a castle in Wartburg, which is in Germany. This is a modern-day photograph of that castle. And while in hiding, what he does, perhaps one of the most important things to happen during the Protestant Reformation, is that he translates the Bible into German. And that's important because at the time, it's usually generally written in Latin, perhaps Greek. Not a lot of individuals have translated it. So he's able to do that, and more people in Germany, by the early 1520s, are able to read the Bible. So after the Diet of Worms, now Luther is going to kind of begin laying the foundation for the Protestant faith, right? Root word of Protestant obviously is protest, because that's really what it started out as, a protest against the Catholic Church. So he's going to emphasize faith and faith alone are what are going to bring you salvation. It's not about, payment for your sins. It's about how good of a person can you be. And really, you're getting that faith, those ideas of faith from the Bible, right? Not from God, or from God in a way, but not from any other man, not from the Pope. It's between you, yourself, your interpretations of your actions and of the Bible and of your relationship with God. So then Luther starts to change some things about the Catholic Church. Obviously, it's going to be spoken, church services are going to be spoken in German, the vernacular of the German people. It's now less about this hierarchy, right? We have this church hierarchy with the Pope at the top, then bishops and archbishops, Catholics, cardinals, all the way down, right, to archbishops and you and I. But Luther is going to advocate for this community of followers. It's God at the top, and then everyone else beneath him. He's going to center his religious services around biblical preaching. A lot of Catholics, masses even today do that, but it's less about rituals, more about what can we learn from the Bible. So now, again, not until, 4, 5, 6 years later does Luther really start to lay the foundations of the Protestant faith. So, major differences between Catholic and Protestant individuals. And a lot of these obviously are still true today. Those who are Catholic believe that good deeds and belief in one God will bring you salvation, right? Deeds meaning, prayer, possibly a pilgrimage, your charity, your donation, things like that, right? How good of a person you are. They believe in the Bible, right? Having mass or church services. They also believe in the Pope, right? Just some major details here. Those are kind of the sources of your religious truth, right? There is a church hierarchy. Some of those individuals, especially, this is obviously less true. Well, it's true today, but they have the power of indulgences where the Pope and archbishops can say, okay, for your payment, you will be remiss of your sins. Catholics believe in the 7 sacraments, one of them being confession. And we'll talk about this in class, but confession is really confessing your sins to a priest, right? And the priest may say, okay, if you pray this amount of times, you'll be kind of forgiven for those sins. They also believe in the other 6 sacraments, which, again, we'll talk about in class. Catholics believe in prayer to saints, almost a pagan ideal in a way. If you pray to St. Anthony or pray to St. Michael or, whatever, for certain things. And a major idea is priests cannot marry, nor can they be women in the Catholic Church, and that is true to this day. So those are some Catholic beliefs. More Protestant beliefs here. Again, these developed from Martin Luther's teachings. Salvation is achieved through faith alone. Yes, it's belief in one God. Yes, it is a little bit about deeds, but it's about what you can do, right? Your faith alone in one God, right? Not payment, right? Not those good deeds. The Bible itself is the only source of religious truth. It's no more about what does the Pope say, what does Mass tell us, right? Actually, Catholics are less concerned with the Bible. It's really about Mass. But they are concerned with the Bible, reading the Bible, interpreting the Bible, things like that. All Christians are going to have access to God through faith in the Bible alone. They do not believe in some of the 7 sacraments or, different sects or different branches of Protestantism as we kind of move throughout history have sacraments, but they don't believe in confession. Confession happens between you and God alone. They have no prayer to saints. Pastors are allowed to marry, and women can be church leaders. Right? So those are kind of 2 differing opinions, and these are the 2 really branches of Christianity. The third being Orthodox, which develops a lot sooner during the Great Schism in the thousands in the 11th century, but this happens in the 16th century.